So forgive me in advance. I am going to use my notes. This is a really important story. So welcome back to Client Stories with DNAngels. My name is Laura. I'm the founder and executive director. So let's take a moment to imagine something unimaginable. What if you woke up one day and you found out that everything you thought you knew about yourself, your name, your family, your very identity, was a lie? Today, I want to share with you the story of someone who is living through exactly that. This is my most memorable case of the year. So this story is about Brielle Thompson. She is a living, unidentified person, and her journey to uncover the truth is one of the most incredible and complicated cases I've ever worked on. So grab a seat and let's talk about Brielle's journey. So Brielle grew up believing that she was the daughter of Sandra Lee Scott, and from the outside it seemed like any other family. But deep down, Brielle always felt like something was off. We understand that, don't we? Have you ever had that gut feeling that something just doesn't add up? Well, Brielle lived with that feeling her entire life. Then in 2021, everything changed. A detective contacted her out of the blue. They were working on a missing persons case, and they thought Brielle might be the person they were looking for. Can you imagine that? Like out of nowhere, being told, you might not be who you think you are. But here's the kicker. After DNA testing, it turned out that Brielle wasn't connected to the missing person at all. She wasn't related to anyone who she thought was her family either. That was the moment everything unraveled. So the detective gave her a label that would change her life forever. He said, you're a living, unidentified person. A living, unidentified person. And it gets worse. Her social security number, it wasn't hers. It belonged to a man that was deceased out of Texas. A man, and she was a female. Her birth certificate, completely fake. With Sandra and a man listed as her parents, Brielle had no idea who she really was. And honestly, I can't even begin to imagine the emotional toll that might take. But Brielle and her husband Adam decided they had to find answers. They started with DNA testing on multiple platforms like Ancestry and 23andMe, and hoping to find some clues. But it wasn't that simple. None of her DNA matches would respond to her messages. So imagine seeing names of people that you were biologically related to and might have a clue to your identity, and they just won't answer. And they even hired professional genealogists and spent thousands of dollars and still ended up stuck. Here's the thing with a professional genealogist, you're paying by the hour. So once you reach that hour, the maximum amount of hours, and you don't pay more, research stops. But they were having the same types of problems with kind of people not responding, and so they couldn't get any further. There's also a difference between a professional genealogist and an actual genetic genealogist. But like I said, it wasn't for a lack of effort. It's just that this case is so rare and so complex that progress felt impossible without cooperation from these matches. And that's when Brielle's story caught the attention of the Sacramento District Attorney and even Congresswoman Matsuki. Yes, her case was that big. So Adam, who is Brielle's husband, happened to come across our website one day after exhausting all other avenues previously and exhausting their finances. So we, of course, accepted the case, no questions asked. It took us a few months of investigating and putting the pieces together, but finally we made a breakthrough. Through DNA analysis and endless research, we did identify Brielle's biological mother as Corrine Parsons Rutherford. But here's where the story takes a heartbreaking turn. Corrine had passed away years ago. Brielle would never get the chance to meet her. She couldn't ask her mother questions that had haunted her for so long. Why was I taken? What happened to me? Why did no one come looking for me? We got some answers. So here's where things get even more interesting. While connecting with Corrine's family, we found one of Brielle's half-sisters, and she had a story that changed everything. Corrine had told family that while she was away on vacation, the babysitter ran off with Brielle. Everyone assumed that Corrine had called the police, but here's the shocking part, she never did. Through further investigation, we learned that Corrine's husband was in prison at the time she got pregnant. He didn't want another child in the picture and had encouraged Corrine to give Brielle away. That decision might be how Brielle ended up in Sandra's care. Now, as we dug even deeper, we uncovered even more jaw-dropping details. Remember the missing persons case that originally brought Brielle's situation to light? The missing person turned out to be Sandra's niece, her sister's child. Let that sink in for a minute. So Sandra's raising a child that's not her own and that she's pretty much been given by the birth mother. And by the way, she raised 9 children, and we're not sure how many of those children she actually gave birth to. But the detective reached out to Brielle thinking she was a missing child, and that missing child was Sandra's sister's child, so her niece. So Sandra had not only fabricated Brielle's identity, but she also had ties to the missing person case involving her own family. It's hard not to wonder how all of these threads connect. And then, in a final twist, we uncovered Brielle's original birth record, which is crazy. I've got to tell you, Brielle was born in California, and I can't believe that the police, the former professional genealogists, and everybody involved in this didn't find Brielle's original birth certificate. Because when we found the half-sister and we put a few pieces together, and then we went looking at the California birth index, we found the birth certificate, and Brielle's name was the same name that she was born with. It was just spelled slightly different. So same name, same birthday that Brielle had grown up with believing was her name, although the last name had been changed. But that was crazy. When we found that, we were like, oh my goodness, this is her birth record, and her name really is Brielle. So at least that didn't change about her, just the spelling of her name. Her birth date was correct, but everything else, her social security number, birth certificate, that was still a lie. Now, let's talk about Dad real quick. While we made incredible progress in solving Brielle's case, the search for her biological father continues. Her DNA has pointed to a few potential family lines, but it's been slow going. Some people don't want to talk, while others might not even realize they hold pieces to the puzzle. Well, we have narrowed it down to 3 major families: the Butlers, the Bells, and the Irwins. Somewhere in those lines is Brielle's father, and we are determined to find him. It just hasn't happened yet. Brielle's story isn't just about finding her parents. It's about reclaiming her identity and her truth. It's about exposing how easily lives can be stolen through deception, and how critical it is to have a support system when you find out or uncover the truth. So for anyone who has ever lost, who has ever felt lost, disconnected, or uncertain about their roots, Brielle's journey is a reminder that answers are worth fighting for. So what can you do? First, if Brielle's story has touched your heart, leave a pink heart in the comments. Let's show her she's not alone, that she has a community of people cheering her on as she continues her search for the missing pieces of her life. And if you or someone you know is searching for answers about their identity, reach out to DNAngels. Together, we can uncover the truth. We can start mending broken connections and help people reclaim what's rightfully theirs, their story.